Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Max Earners with MNT. And this time we actually have the right people. M has always been here. I was here last week too. I am LeatherneckMike, former co-GM for the King Tutorials, and all kinds of stuff here in the Pro Baseball Experience. With me this week, and hopefully every week, for I don't know how long till you go back to school, Stolzy, or something
Uh,
else
well,
interrupts
I
and.
don't know. Unless I want to try to get a graduate's degree, that's going to be a pretty big question. So, yeah, no, I'm probably going to be long term around here.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot you graduated. You graduated college,
Yeah,
not
no, it's
just got
not
out for
just
the
the end of the
summer.
year.
You're right.
Yeah, it's kind of graduated full time. So, yep.
So with me, if you can't already tell from his lovely voice, it is Tstols. Stolzy was the number one pick in his class to the Apex a few seasons ago. He's a big voice in Indianapolis and at the State College here in the PBE. He's with this team. Do you have any other actual jobs in PBE, or are you just kind of everywhere?
It's just kind of everywhere. I mean, next season I'm going to be more active on some Sims. I'll be doing a kind of
Oh,
helping
co-host.
alongside
Yeah,
some
co-host.
co-hosts.
That's right.
If I knew how to work a Sim, I'd do it, but that'll be something I have to fix for a while, including the Wi-Fi that's delayed this recording once or twice. But
We'll be all right. So here's how this is gonna go. I'm thinking that this is gonna be a nice light, fun show. Since we're in show, I mean, this is really show one. The draft preview show was kind of the first, the groundwork. This is kind of the pilot, right? This is episode one. So we'll talk through some segments here, Stolzy and I. And I just, like I said, I wanted to lay that down, and we'll get right into topic number one. The WBC just happened as of this recording. The final was last night. Mexico wins pretty comfortably at the end of the day. They were tied and got the number one seed via tiebreaker. Then they went on and won the thing. And what did you think, just overall, Stoles? Not even do with the out of park side of things, just how the whole of the WBC went down. Like me personally, I think it was kind of really interesting how FTR did it. Like I kind of wondered at first how it was going to work with changing the JPT from an actual task to signing up for the WBC, and then what the WBC was actually going to be. And the one criticism that I have is the sign up got done like week 2, and then there was basically radio silence from like week 3 until like the night that the WBC started, pretty much without fanfare, just a random
yeah,
one-off announcement. So there's this really weird gap there. But other than that, and the boo-boos that happen when you're running a sim, I was kind of meh on the WBC. What'd you feel?
like I mean, I was on because I was one of the lucky minor league players to get put on a team, so there was some hype. There was a team serve I was with for Japan, and I also was hanging around with some of the other people from Mexico too, which was always a good time. But yeah, I definitely think that the fact that there was very little sort of, hey, this is what's going to happen, was kind of a bit surprising. And also when FTR mentioned, oh, we don't have anyone to stream them, I definitely think they could have reached out because we got a whole bunch of sim people that would have been ready to start. And good news is we had Hummus ready to go for the final part of the tournament. But yeah, apart from I think the lack of fanfare getting it started, it worked out well. I'm not the biggest fan of index sims, but it can work out well. And I think overall, once we got into a rhythm with it, it turned out well.
I mean, it was gigantic, like that first week that it got properly publicly announced, and they did the signups, and there was some snafus early there too. Kind of Mexico was the team that was recruiting, kind of nobody else did because they didn't know they were supposed to. USA had a forum post. A few people got with their friends, whatever. There was some backstage controversy about Mexico having too many great players because they went out and did the recruiting that they were never told they couldn't do, but nobody told the others that they could or needed to do. So there was this very weird system where it's very much this like it to me it felt like a first run thing. Like
Yes.
this was so clearly, and it's not a first run in the history of the league. Is a
No,
first
there's
run in
been.
this iteration with this guy running it. So shout out to FDR and the GMs for their hard work. I'm not trying to rag, but it was very much first run. But for the first run, the Mexico VC had like 15 people in it. I heard that some other servers did pretty decent. Some other servers didn't do as well. But
Yeah, Japan was pretty active. Sadly, we didn't have a lot of people around for VC, but yeah, we were active. We were watching. We were getting hyped for our first round victory. But yeah, I agree. Definitely hats off to FDR. I think it turned out really well. And obviously, once we get the growing pains out of the way, if we can get it part of more assimilated into the schedule and we do it, say, in a few seasons' time when we bring it back up, that would be great because we could get, I know plenty of the people who usually do host the streams and things like that would love to be able to help and get it streamed. But yeah, it definitely worked out really well. I think from that standpoint, and also yeah, it was really cool to see a lot of users being able to get on teams. It kind of felt weird though. I don't know. Like I've got like a. Actually, you continue. I gotta think about something.
I mean, I thought it was kind of weird that I didn't get on team. Like I'm 1200 TP in like Korea, the United Kingdom,
Oh yeah,
teams
UK.
that had
That's a surprise.
really low players. I'm like, you couldn't use the DH or anything. Like I put down Mexico first on my sheet, but I was kind of open to playing anyway. But I didn't get a message from anybody even after the Mexico thing happened. So it became obvious that recruiting happened, and then kind of there was a lot of people who didn't get recruited. So there was some weirdness around here. I think what I hope that FTR learns from this for next time is, hey, okay, here is this structure that we're going to do. You can recruit people this time to this time. We're going to say at this point that, hey, you know, recruiting is done. Here's the rosters. Put them up on the forum,
Yes,
all this
and
other
that
stuff,
is.
and it'll be nice and structured. And I don't know about you, Stolzy. When do you think the next one should be? I think it should be in like 4 seasons.
I
Do it.
think matching the real life WBC and having it at the end of season 44, which I think time frame wise would be winter 2023. I think that would probably be the best time to do it because obviously you don't want to have it too often. Making it a seasonal tournament would just kind of be a little bit too much.
Yeah, it shouldn't be every year. I think that's way too much.
Yeah, I certainly think that yeah, making it 4 seasons could work out well, and yeah, I definitely think that yeah, like doing that would be good. And I definitely think as well next time I would like to see like where because again we had like GMs like Pow, Micro, whoever Korea's GM or other GMs too. They were able to announce a few of their teams, but there are a few other GMs that didn't announce their teams. So it was kind of blind, I think, leading up to it. So it would be cool to have like a compendium sort of sheet up there as well. But obviously that's kind of thinking months down the line from the next one is. But yeah, I think there's a lot of room for it to grow, and it was a very successful first run.
Yeah, I will say that it was a solid first run of the WBC, and especially with the run that Korea had, beating the Canadians, then beating the Japanese, and getting to Mexico, but Mexico ultimately the top DBE team and the top team in the tournament, won in the end. I was in there. Hopefully, I'll be on the next Mexico team. I was in that locker room, as I said, in that VC. They were very excited, so it was certainly very successful on that side of things. So congrats to Pau and Van and all them. So that wraps up this WBC chatter. When we come back, as we are going to go to break, there are commercials and these things too. We're kind of paying some bills, kind of not paying some bills. So you'll see what I mean when we get out of here. But when we get back, we're going to talk about who the best GM in PBE is right now. And I have what I think is a really interesting take on who it is. You're listening to MNT. It's the Max Earners. We're back, LeatherneckMike, alongside Tstols. This is the Max Earners with MNT. Stolzy, I said Seg 2.
Yeah, you
We were going
said
to talk
Tstols.
about some GMs. GMing in this league, it's a thing that I've done for a while. It's an incredibly important thing. It's a thing that we're really short on right now. And I want to hear about this from you, who a new guy. What is your perspective on GMing right now in PBE, where the talent level is, how complicated is it? Just what's your general overview?
It's interesting. I don't have a lot of experience being in the war rooms with people. Because I am in the indie war room, I'm in the state war room, but I don't know a lot about how a lot of the other GMs work. I'm really an outsider for it. I know we've got a great system over at State College. It almost feels like it's like a semi-majors war room in a way. Like, I definitely think, because I know Anikh and Unconfident, they're great GMs. If they made the transition to the majors, they'd probably rank among the best in doing so for that. But yeah, obviously, if you take a look at a lot of the majors, there there's definitely a mix of good, definitely a mix of potential to improve too. But overall, I don't think there's any true GMs that are like any problems or anything like that.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I look, you whoever you want to banter around as the worst run team right now, it's still run better than, you know, it would still be the third worst like a decade ago and the decade before in terms of league years. So even if you have like the worst run team today would not be the worst run team in years prior. I think the GM
Oh yeah.
pool is about as good as it's ever been to a degree. Like from top to bottom, pound for pound, I think it's the best it's ever been because even the guys that aren't good at the actual player skill are good drafters, or they're not good drafters and player management, but they have really good locker rooms. Like
Or they're good
everybody
at like testing
does,
and things like that.
yeah, everybody does at least something well, one thing well, I'll ask you first before I go into my thing. Who do you think is the best run team right now? Who is your best GM in the league?
That's really tough because I mean, you're taking a look around the PBE. I mean, obviously, one of the reason that we're kind of bringing up this debate is the success from the back-to-back champions that I know you'll be able to get into a little bit more. Um, but I also have to respect when a team is able to really kind of manage a good rebuild too. Because I mean, take a look over with from State College. Anik and Unconfident did some things that were really good to get the team back on track, such as drafting myself. But they also were able to manage well. We got a great locker room going. And we take a look over at Maui. After a pretty decent season, Rabin and Kitakaze, they got the General Manager of the Year award, not for being the best team, but for taking Maui and bringing them their first winning season, despite still being in somewhat early stages of their rebuild. I think realistically, they're not a team that's a playoff contender. If they make the playoffs, unless they get some good sim luck, they're probably a first round exit. But to already be knocking on the door a little bit ahead of schedule showcases that Maui's really moving forward.
So in a world where the Maui's, so Rabbids in Kit in this case, and the Juozus in San Antonio, who's a legend in our world, and Person Man, who is a legend in our world. Enoch doesn't have the World Series, but he is widely respected. When you
Mm-hmm.
have those guys, I actually think to me it's Bailey of OBX who is the best right now, and that's going to sound a bit weird to some old heads at first, but if you look at what Bailey did, let's not let's cut right to the point here. Look, when Bailey took this team over, it was supposed to be on an interim basis, and the team was dead. The back-to-backs were done. It was time to pay the piper from the backloads from AW and CK and Razor, and it was dead. Untradables, not a lot of picks to speak of. The thing was over. So in this league, which I have to understand is it takes a long, long time to be good. An obscenely long time to be good. And most teams that do the window system get there by having a whole stink pile of top picks. First round picks out the wazoo from trades and all this other stuff. If you look at what Bailey did, Seattle the first time traded for a bunch of picks. Cancun now, who's we'll get in that segment later. I think they're one of the best setups. Indy has one of the best setups. They had a bunch of picks. Bailey didn't. He only had 2 seasons with multiple first round picks in those first couple of years of the rebuild, where other rebuilders usually have 2, 3, or 4. And in particular, like the second draft, for example. This is Bailey's second draft. With OBX, the second time around, I think he GM'd really early, was Pico Bear, Schneider, Oil Can, and Gianna Morgan, which got OBX 2 really important things. Schneider and Morgan. Morgan being Bailey, Schneider being Alikh. And that is really the most important pick because at the 5th pick, OBX got the face of that franchise. They got the guy who kind of became the symbol of OBX and Alikh. He just won most decorated member. There were 3
Very well
teams that
deserved.
passed on that guy. So Bailey identified that guy. Pico Bear was toward the top of his class, is still even right now 21st, and the guy went IA. I will get to that later. So some good drafting. Quinn goes IA from S30 draft. Bear goes IA from 31. Oil Can goes IA from 31 also. So you look at the actual drafting resume, and already in the first 2 years, we got 1 incredible hit and 3 misses. Or half hits, however you want to say it. Then in 32, Ohei Shotani picked, goes inactive after 4 seasons. Hamish Swinghammer goes inactive, retires. In round 3, OBX gets Asui, who winds up being an infielder for them and he's still there his entire career up to this point. 12th in the class at pick 35. Fantastic hit. So you look at this and you go, well, this early drafting resume doesn't look that good. So that's kind of where they form the basis. Then they get AU Gold, they get a W in. Ajoie, the 10th earner in the class, at pick 17 in S33. S33, I think, is his best draft. It's Ottav, Kim, Ajoie, and Montgomery. Tucker Montgomery still playing in New York right now. So there in that class, I think, is his best. But I pointed out the names Bear, Oil Can, Quinn, etc. because what Bailey did that I think is impressive is at first he drafted really well. It looked really, really good. Then all those guys went inactive. Not all of them. Half of them went inactive. So at that point, there's a lot of doom there. Like Tstols. Like if Dub went IA, Fast Track went IA, and Cornholio went IA, you would say that Indy would be in a lot of trouble, right? Because you just lost half your core.
Yeah, I certainly think so. And as well, we don't have a lot of current guys we can fall back on. I definitely think that losing a few people would hurt. Yeah.
So when you lose guys like that, it really hurts rebuilders. So number one, I think and it's a little hard to point this out now, if you look period specific, Bailey drafted pretty well to start with not a lot of picks to do so. Then, going off of that, when they got toward competitive and those guys left, they were still high enough TPE to be useful. And the drafts afterwards got good. And then, with those IAs, Bailey actually managed to turn those and picks into productive players and went all in. Like, I was a guy who said before S38, I'm pretty sure it was, I was a guy who said OBX needs to restart and rebuild. The rebuild unfortunately failed. This is not Bailey's fault. He got mileage out of a bunch of guys that nobody else would have taken. It's not his fault, but it happened. They need to blow it up. He didn't. He got Anthony Brizzo and Dustin Johnson and won a championship there. He traded a haul, got Bob Babbitt for the future and for now, and won a championship. in those moves, some of those guys got cut, got sent away. Michael Ferris Bueller Jr., who was a top pick, a first round pick, looked really, really good. Later on in Bailey's tenure, he went IA. Sometimes these guys just drop. He turned him into Brizzo, some cap space, and ultimately a championship. So when I look at what Bailey did right now from a team building perspective, there is drafting guys with value, having things go wrong, and then turning that into positives and into a championship and going all in and making trades and not actually having to expend a large amount of draft capital where they can draft Stumanji a couple years ago. Um, they can draft Adam Hangman this year to try and keep that team going forward. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs for 23 straight years like New York, whatever that's up to right now, but they have a future. You
I
can't say
will
that
say as
about
well,
Vancouver.
hold that thought about OBX not being able to go to the future, because I want to give you a look at their current prospect
Okay.
pool. They've got players that'll be hanging around a few more years. This is probably Morgan's farewell deal after the end of the season. I have a feeling Morgan will probably, or Bailey's current player, Morgan will stick around for maybe 1 to 2 more seasons, and then they'll retire. I wouldn't be surprised if it was sooner rather than later to try to hop onto this current crew. AW probably sticks, or AW's player Cole Kim sticks around probably a little bit longer before doing a similar thing. But taking a look in maybe 3 seasons, everyone from that top group looking at the compendium from Bab Person, Schneider, Jose 43, Walrus Jones, Nick Fielder, Aria, they're all going to be absolutely gone by 43. But then you have Mason Williams, Dunkin' Donuts, Beckett Brooks, Okada Khan, and you have other players as well that are ready. I mean, you just mentioned this year, Acoustic went to OBX, which is great value for the player. Acoustic was a pretty solid player in the minors draft and a good prospect. A little surprised that they actually fell that far. They also were, yeah, they've had some really good drafts alongside this and already have a good core of 4 to 5 players that can immediately fill in for the future.
So if the long version didn't explain it, I hope that my short version will. Bailey is the best GM in this league right now because to me, if you look at what he did, he took a terrible team in a terrible situation. He fixed the situation, almost fixed the situation, and then it fell apart. Out of the rubble that he had, instead of going into a second build, he said, no, I persist. I can do this. And he did it. And he won 2 championships with it. There are not a lot of teams that show that level of resilience when things go that wrong. Like, there was an opportunity there that was afforded to him by all of those guys going IA, and he found the ways to take it. And you can say that there's luck involved, that Nashville was willing to trade Brizzo, and Babin Person was available because Seattle was falling apart, and all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, everybody has that. But I think that there was no room for error in the rebuild to start. All the error happened, and he still somehow found ways to win championships. He got mileage out of guys that nobody else was going to draft, and that's just the truth of it. There are some guys on that team no one else would have taken. He took them, and he got more mileage out of them than anybody else has gotten out of them, and that's just the truth. He's done a fantastic job. That locker room is in incredible shape, and it's a really good story. It's a really really good team, and I hope that that he should go in the GM Hall of Fame, absolutely.
Mhm.
And I hope that in seasons after he has stepped down, when we look back, we think of a fantastic, resilient general manager who didn't just draft their way to a title, trade their way to a title, did all of it, did all of it. A fantastic plan, a in a league now where I think we're kind of offensive, went defensive, found the countersink, and it worked. Fantastic job by Bailey and the OBX crew. And that right now is why I think Bailey is the best GM doing it here in PBA. When we get back, we'll have our final segment.
Actually,
So,
before I'll cut
oh
you
yeah,
off because
yeah.
again,
What's up?
I've barely had any chances to speak.
You
By
got
the way,
something? All right,
uh,
all right.
yeah, no, I'll say that because that's what I knew. I thought you were going to go first and kind of bring that up as well for Bailey, and I definitely have to agree to take OBX to the top and put them in a position to keep succeeding. I definitely think Bailey's up there. And obviously, I think, like you were mentioning before, that doesn't discount the efforts from New York, from staying super competitive, from Death Valley, who basically had lost their core and within the span of one season are back to being playoff contenders. You have a lot of great GMs in the PB at the moment, but yeah, for now, certainly going to be Bailey at the top.
See, first show, we're working things out. We're
Mhm.
working out how the give and take goes here. Who the leader, who the follower, and we'll get all that stuff as time goes on. So, when we get back from break, we're gonna take another break again. Got to pay the bills. When we get back, we'll talk about our. We're gonna. How about three? Are you good with three? Three teams in a league that got the best future? How about that?
Oh, let's just wait and see.
All right, well, something like three teams with their best future. But we get back on Max
There could be a
Earners
few others.
with M&T. Could be two, could be three. We'll see. We'll be back. Back for Seg 3 on Max Earners with M&T. I am LeatherneckMike. He is Tstols, and we have got the teams with the best futures. Now, I'm not talking about the next 3 seasons. I'm talking about like the 3 seasons after that, the teams that we think are going to be in the best shape looking forward, looking to the next generation of great teams. Right now, we got great teams: New York, Outer Banks, Lunar Base is about ready to come into their own. I think they're going to be the best team in the next 2, 3 seasons. In that window, I'm looking like 4 to 8 seasons, looking way out into the future. The teams whose farms and whose young player systems are set up for the best. My top team, I'll start. My first place team is Cancun. They are absolutely loaded with prospects. The top three prospects, Stroh and Quest, have been up a while. They are at the top of their class. Stroh is the literal top of his class. Nipper Stick, also nearly 1,000 TPE, near the top of his class. Their fourth overall pick in S36. Zodiac Blue Sky, they got him in the second round in S36. He is way near the top as well. He was even, I think, a week 2 create, so he's even outperformed his position. Then they've got a bunch of phenomenal picks from there. Legally Blind Gamer, who's on first to general manager. Steel, who they traded up 1 and 2 in S37 to get. And then you and I were talking about this off air, Stoles, that phenomenal 39 draft that Cancun had.
Yeah, and because again, Coon opened up with Bauer. They got some good value on a trade there, but the pitching is what's insane for Cancun. Pitching's the backbone of any team, and alongside Stroh and Quest, who are going to be wrapping up their primes by the time the 39 players get into their full form, get into their full ability to be elite arms. They got Negs, a great guy to lead the bullpen. Orbiting Death, graphics whiz. Kaneto Minara, whose Drew McIntyre character is already one of the better players of season 39, an incredible value pick, and also Ryan Knock, Nospace, the Emmy winner. What an incredible start he's had, a godsend on the waiver wire for State College, and even better to go at 5 for Cancun. So yeah, like I mean, what a draft it was.
So that's my top system. I think they're one of the teams that I think has the brightest future. I think they'll make the playoffs for the first time in 41. Um, this year, which he gets incredibly lucky with some trades, which hasn't materialized so far. 41, I certainly think they're a playoff team, but I think they're a dominant team for seasons to come because 35, 36, 37, and even 34 with Greenwall is kind of their core. But that 39 draft was so good, and they have so many picks going forward. Their future beyond 8 seasons, 10, 12 seasons is incredibly bright. So that's my first team. Who is your first team?
Cancun as well. I mean, duh. At this point, it's kind of clear to say duh. They made some great ideas. They made some good trades. I mean, who else can you really say at this point is one of the top teams or the top team besides them? No one. You've got a lot of other great systems that I think we'll continue into, but yeah, clearly it's Cancun, and I think this season they could pull off a Maui and fight for a playoff contention.
So my second team, I don't think should be that big a surprise. I don't think the top two is a hugely debate. You may be able to debate the order in some ways, because one team is a little bit younger than the others, but I think top two is pretty clear right now. I have Indy at number two. Stoles, DoubleDub. They made nice picks with Nate Nitro. That's Cornholio. As well, they have Josh. They have Jew the Jew is this player name? What a name, Josh. Josh the Jew, who's back. This is a really, really good team right now. Um, we'll see how dynamic works out. I thought that was a pretty good pick. He's a minors GM right now. There was a little snafu with when he could earn, is what I
And
was
yeah,
told.
let's
So he
yeah,
should come
let's
back, I hope.
yeah, and yeah, let me interrupt really quickly because I know
Yeah,
the details about this. Let this also be a reminder to every PBE new user who's maybe tuning in. You can bank past 350. I had the same thing too. I wasn't sure. I was asking Anik and Unconfident, like, "Oh yeah, don't worry, you can bank past
yeah.
350."
You
But
can earn past 350. You just bank it,
yeah,
folks.
you just have to make sure you bank it. And unfortunately, Randy forgot about that. I think I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he had asked anyone at Indy, but I'm not sure if he'd asked anyone at Chicago. But you look in the rule book and you think, "Oh, whoops, I can't earn," and that's a
This
it's
is
a
not how that
mistake that
works. You can
you look
bank the
back a couple
TPE. You'll
seasons and
just
you're like, "Oh, whoops." But
you'll
yeah,
just
Randy's back.
update 400
Randy's
TPE when you get up. It's fine.
yeah.
It's fine.
No, and I think we're excited that also Randy's been more active in our locker room now, and as he's going to get ready for in a few seasons to eventually come up. And yeah, we've got a good group of players. We've got a good locker room that we're trying to get set up, and I think we've got the potential to go far.
And then you
And
just took Jenny and Gumlin, and I am really impressed with the Gumlin pick. That was a
yeah,
great pickup in the second round.
we definitely recovered with Gumland. We definitely were talking about potentially making some moves that never worked out. But I don't think we regret missing ultimately landing at Gumland because Gumland fell that far, so we got a steal with that pick, and I think we're pretty satisfied. And of course, Jenny comes in as a great new user, and overall, yeah, there's a lot I think to be happy about with this team, and we're now really fully set on course to just play the waiting game that Cancun had been doing for a few seasons.
So I assume that your Apex are at second for you.
Yeah, I'd say that for now.
So Cancun at one, India two for both of us. Third, we disagree. I'll let Stoles go first. Your third best future in the PB.
Yeah, my third right now, I have to take a look to the future. And although there's a few other teams to look at, I have to give it over to Seattle. Seattle, I think, pulled the plug at an awkward but the right time. They cashed out, they got some value, and they still have a ton of solid players that even though their team not going to be super competitive, they already have a huge core of players that can help them long term. They've got Ernie Harwell, they've got Cantheron, they got Ladley from uh, State College. Not going to be max earning, but still consistent earning and a player who will actually be cheaper long term. The minimums are being raised, I think, or have been raised. So that also is going to have teams figure out new ways to balance the cap, which is going to be a little tricky. They've got players from 34 and 35 already that are pretty good. Or actually no, it's mainly 34. Taking a double look at it, but players like Bianca, Shane, and Musha are going to be around even a couple, 3, 4 seasons once their prime finishes. They'll be wrapping up by the time their other prospects are ready, and the ones that I haven't even mentioned. You've got Haseo, McGritty, Jabs, and they recently had a great season 40 draft. They were able to get DP 420 late in the first round, and the top prospect, Captain SB, who's been part of an absolutely stellar group of new user pitchers who have entered the league. Uh, they've really formed a really good new group of players on the mound for the PBE. I was like sort of the first out of this new group to go in season 38. Then Dub and Nospace went in season 39, and of course you can count players like Nova Montagna and Drew McIntyre at the bottom half of the set or in the second round of season 39's absolutely uber stacked class. as part of that group too. And then, of course, Captain SB as Shohei Ohtani, another top 5 new create pitcher. So, yeah, a great pick for Seattle, who we all thought that season 40 pick was going to be Evok for the longest time until Captain SB got his foot in the door.
So you say you have Seattle at 3. I don't. And I think Seattle would be 4th or 5th for me. The reason that I don't have their farm 3rd right now is because I think as far as like that 4 to 8, I think it's too early to say whether that thing's great or not, because that will come later on. That will come with the more picks that they take. I think I think that there are some moves. I don't think I can say what I think they should be. Check the rule book on that one, but there's some moves that they should make. There's some players that they should move and get picks from. It'd be the smartest thing for the rebuild. But if they do decide to, run things out, the good news is if they don't move those people, they're still young enough to be on the end of that next window. But I think it's a little too early from them. I think they need another couple drafts before they move into the top 3. I have
Oh, yeah,
Maui
for sure.
3rd right now. I think they're the team with the 3rd best future. Repnar, Diesel, Kitakaze, Aircrew, all from the same draft. Phenomenal drafting by Rabbit, and then Rabbit and Crunk in that other class, in the class after. So that's 35 and 36, and then Rory, Nerji, Project Saint, who should be a pen arm for a bit. John Wayne 12 from the drafts after. They just took Low Key in the first round. Rabbit has done a really good job coming from a team that had never made the playoffs before. They hadn't even have a winning season before, and they'd been around for I think 13 seasons before he got there. Rabbit has done a phenomenal job there. We mentioned it earlier in the program. Tstols said he was one of the best GMs going. He just won GM of the Year with Kit, and they've done a great job. And I think they got the 3rd. And when I look at the bright futures in the league, and for those of you wondering, well, what are you out of your damn mind? Where's Lunar Base? Where's Death Valley? I'm talking the window after them. So the window that starts in like 4 seasons, I think Maui's gonna be peaking right there with Cancun and Indianapolis.
Yeah, and I definitely think Maui would probably be 4 for me, and they definitely have the best shot besides Cancun to immediately make an impact. The majority of their guys are season 36 and season 35, with some pretty solid players from 38 and 39 sprinkled in. They were able to get Project Saint. They were able to get Nourish, who's one of the better prospects. They've got Dolores Clifton, and it's even for season 40, I think you'd mentioned. They got Low Key as well, who's one of the best players from that class.
All right, so that's going to be it for this edition of the Max Earners with M&T. We wanted to keep this program around about a half hour or so, so we are going to drop it from here. So next week, we're going to talk about the season. Season 40 is coming up. We'll be in spring training when we talk next time. So for Stoles, do you have anything else to say before we get out of here?
Nope.
All right, well,
All right,
for
no.
the Stoles, I'm Leatherneck Mike. We will see you on the next edition of Max Earners with M&T. Take care.